In a period of just 7 months, I have ended 7 unendable wars. They said they were unendable. You're never going to get them solved. Some were going for 31 years, 2 of them, 31, think of it, 31 years. One was 36 years. One was 28 years. I ended 7 wars. Now, after ending all of these wars and also earlier negotiating the Abraham Accords, which is a very big thing for which our country received no credit, never receives credit. Everyone says that I should get the Nobel Peace Prize for each one of these achievements.
Okay, stop. It's enough. That's Donald Trump speaking today at the UN General Assembly. His speech, by the way, lasted almost an hour. Rudy Husny's on the line. Our feature is brought to you by Guaranteed Industries, reminding you they've teamed up with Can Air so they can keep you nice and warm right through the winter. Give them a call, 514-342-3400. They are your air conditioning experts and pros since 1957. Rudy, I don't know how much of Donald Trump you heard earlier today. That's a small part of it. I didn't include the part where he said they should have allowed him to redo the building because he could have saved them a lot of money, or how well the stock market is doing under him. But give me your general overview here. What'd you think?
Yeah, so normally it's supposed to be a 15-minute speech before the UN. Mr. Trump spoke for more than 55 minutes. It was an attack on renewable energy, against immigration, on the UN itself. He also, as you just mentioned, talked about the building. He even said that the escalator was not working, his teleprompter wasn't working, so the image of the UN. He called for more sanctions on Russia, targeting China and India, saying that they are continuing to buy energy from Russia, which he asked to have more sanction on it, and also calling for the European also to stop buying oil and gas from Russia. And he was making a case, I guess, for his Nobel Prize for Peace and also perhaps a Nobel Prize for the economy, saying that he was able to bring down inflation and that his economics is working. So it was a long, long speech with a lot of content. He also, and that was the part that we were very interested on, was what's happening with the state of Palestine. He said that by recognizing the state of Palestine, the international community is rewarding Hamas and calling for the liberation of all the hostages.
So he covered a lot of ground, and you did a nice job of recapping it there. With respect to the last thing you just mentioned, and I asked this question earlier on, so Canada is now in that group, right, calling for a separate state for Palestine, against what the U.S. and what Donald Trump said today. Is this a point of friction, do you think, Rudy?
Yes, it is a point of friction. It is also something that I do believe it's more about symbolism than real politics, because Canada and a lot of countries believe in a two-state solution. That has been a long-standing position of the Canadian government and also a lot of different countries. But the problem right now is that what are we recognizing? What is the state of Israel, of Palestine? Because normally when you have a state, you need to have frontier, they need borders, they need to be negotiated, you need to have peace, you need to basically recognize each other, which is not the case. So I do believe that there's a lot of symbolism, and I do believe that the international community is trying to punish Benjamin Netanyahu himself as the leader of Israel and not looking at what are the best interests of both Israel and Palestine. So this is my point of view. Yeah. I do believe that in a way we are rewarding terrorists and Hamas. I do believe that we need to call to have hostages before even entering in those kinds of negotiations. So we'll see what happens. I do believe it's a lot of symbolism. I do believe in a two-state solution, but what exactly are we recognizing in the terms of a state of Palestine? For the moment, we don't know.
Yeah, to your point, again, you'd think that idea of releasing the hostages would be the precursor to getting any kind of a deal done, yet it seems it's in the text, but it doesn't seem to be top of mind necessarily, or is it? Am I misunderstanding that?
That's the problem. Normally, you put precondition before going in front of the UN, like, for example, President Macron did, and saying we recognize the state of Palestine. Normally, you have to at least have an election. Who's the leadership of Palestine right now? We have a president who's more than, I believe he's 86 years old, hasn't held election in more than 15 years. So normally you have precondition, like releasing the hostage, making sure that Hamas puts down their weapon, and that you have fair and free election in the short term.
That's what we have not seen. All right, let me move on to talk about a couple of other things. As I said, as you mentioned, he went for almost an hour. On the situation with Russia and Ukraine, he again brought up this idea that, China and India, he mentioned India specifically, are propping up the Russian government by continuing to buy their oil, and that he will be forced, he said, and I think he said, I'd like other people to join us, meaning the U.S., in imposing some kind of sanctions or tariffs. What did you make of that?
Yes, this is something that, yes, it's true that China and India are in a way still helping Russia by buying their oil and gas. So he is putting pressure. He's saying, I cannot put sanction on Russia if other countries don't follow like I'm doing. He also set a new timeline. He said that he's thinking that there can be peace or at least something between Russia and Ukraine in the next month. So that's a new deadline. We remember that President Trump met with President Putin in Alaska. They were supposed to have some peace talk. It didn't happen, so that's a new deadline. President Trump, did meet with President Zelensky just after that his speech at the UN. So now we have at least a new deadline. What is going to happen, and if there's going to be more sanctions by other countries, and if the U.S. are going to put, for example, pressure on India. But don't forget, at the same time, India is not happy with the U.S. They've been forced to have at least 50% tariff on India exports. So that's also a piece of negotiation between the U.S. and India.
And then today, after he was done, there was a story, I guess he was asked a question, because the suggestion had been Russia's been flying drones through Poland, through Romania, over Estonia. Nothing has happened as a result, other than obviously people in those countries are very much aware of what's going on. I think the Russians, Rudy, have said, no, it's I don't know, how many mistakes can you make? But the Russians have not suggested it's anything more than that. And today, Donald Trump actually said we should shoot down any Russian incursions into those countries. And I'm thinking to myself, this is obviously a provocation. What did you make of that?
Yes, because it's also happened in Denmark and countries in Scandinavia. So yes, that was a very tough statement by President Trump, because he was asked, should we shoot Russian plane? And he answered yes. That is not the position, for example, that Marco Rubio said, and Russia for the moment is still denying and saying that it's not. So don't forget that those countries are part of NATO. If they feel attacked, it means that all countries are attacked, and they can ask for a response from all countries. So I think that it's very difficult. If they're shooting some Russian plane, that can escalate very, very quickly. And to be honest, Russia is just testing what is the NATO and if NATO are united or not.
I don't know. Are you, when you see stories like this and what we've seen over the past couple of weeks with Russia doing this, are you worried that something larger will come as a result of this?
Yes. Look, just the fact that, for example, I believe it was in Copenhagen, the airport was closed for more than 4 hours because they didn't know what was happening. Are those drones? Are those planes? There's a lot of incursion, not only for example, in Poland, but also in Scandinavian countries. So yes, it's very risky to play that game, especially next to airports.
Let me move back to closer to home. So over the weekend, François Legault was on Tout le monde en parle and actually went out of his way to kind of throw down against the medical specialist medical doctors who, of course, are still at odds with the government. What I found interesting here, last week we heard from Christian Dubé, the health minister, much more conciliatory, right? Saying that, look, I'm going to take the original 25% down to 15%. I want to talk to the doctors. And François Legault gave us a completely different take on that. So what do you think's really going on here?
That's the difficulty. We have double message. First of all, he was saying that maybe they'll have a special law to force negotiation. Now we hear that if there's going to be a special law, it's going to be to stop the pressure or the fact that doctors right now are not teaching students in medical faculties and also internships. So that's what we now understand. But it's true that on one hand, we hear Christian Dubé saying, okay, we're going to lower from 25% to 15%. And after we hear François Legault saying, if we're going to go through this and if they don't teach, we're going to do a special bill and force it through the National Assembly. So I do believe that we need to have a resolution. Students, medical students, it's very important. Don't forget, they only have 4 or 6 weeks of internships. And if there's no teacher, their internship is going to be canceled. And at the end of the day, it's going to cancel and postpone the graduation of medical students that we need in our hospitals and that we need in our clinics.
How do you see this playing out? I mean, the doctors are being pretty adamant, even today, saying, you know what, they took a vote and they're ready to keep fighting.
Yeah, because now it's not only the specialists. Before it was only the specialists, and as you rightly pointed out today at around 1 o'clock, 91% of doctors also voted to stop teaching, but they put a deadline of October 1st. So we'll see. It's going to be a very important week. Are there going to be some negotiation? Because right now we don't even know if they are meeting, and if the doctors also are going to stop teaching, that's going to be very hard on students. So I think that there's a week that negotiation needs to happen with both doctors and specialist doctors.
Let me ask one thing with respect to Francois Legault's appearance on Tout le Monde en Parle. I didn't have a chance to talk to you yesterday. What did you make of it overall in terms of what you heard?
Nothing new, but it's interesting because all winter and during summer and spring, Francois Legault was kind of avoiding media. They decided not to have a strategy of putting him too much in the media, and all of a sudden, he's in Tout le Monde en Parle. He was doing the media round last week. His message is the same. The problem is I do believe that people are not listening to what he's saying because people are just, I think, at the end of an era. So that's my general feeling about that interview. Mm-hmm. It wasn't a bad interview. I think it was okay. He did okay, but I think people just tuned out.
One last thing, just before I go, I want to get your take on Valérie Plante. She's been giving a couple of interviews. We played one on the show earlier today. Mm-hmm. What did you think of this 102-page release from her office of her accomplishments over the term of 8 years? Because I asked earlier, I don't remember this ever being done. I asked Jimeni, doesn't remember this ever being done either. What did you make of this?
No, normally you wait for others to write your legacy, and you don't put a press statement on your own, basically saying what you did and what you accomplished. I did find it odd. I know she did also the media circle. I believe yesterday she was at TVA and other network, basically talking about her legacy. Normally you wait to finish your term and you let other people talk good about you, especially after the election.
Yeah, not this time. Rudy Husny. Rudy, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Seasoned gamer or just video game curious? This Week in Gaming is the podcast for you. We break down the latest in the world of video games, from basics to beyond. The hottest gaming news, insight, and industry leaders and more weekly. Join me, Naomi Kyle, and stay ahead of the game with all the latest updates, even if you're a total newbie. Stream This Week in Gaming on the free iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.